This is the National Institute of Health. It says transsexuals' right to health, a Cuban case study. That's right. We're going to Cuba, baby. It says in 2008, Cuba's Minister of Public Health signed Resolution 126, an act that assured complete coverage for Cubans seeking sexual reassignment surgeries, also known as gender confirmation surgeries, the first of any country in Latin America to do so. 10 years later, Cuba is celebrated as having one of the most open and inclusive LGBTQ public health and education programs in the Americas. As illustrated throughout this article, the Cuban state approaches sexuality and sexual identity not as right-based issues, but as health-based challenges. Through the case study of Cuba's understanding of transsexuals' right to health, we argue that Cuba has provided an example of how the right to health for all moves towards breaking down the barriers of stigma by improving health outcomes for those with transsexual health needs. Because in 2008, Cuba's Minister of Public Health, Jose Ramon Balaguer Cabrera, she signed Resolution 126, an act that assured complete coverage for Cubans seeking sexual reassignment surgery, also known as gender confirmation surgery. 10 years later, Cuba is celebrated as having one of the most open and inclusive LGBTQ, known in Cuba as sexual diversity, public health, and education programs in the Americas. This is important for two reasons. First, the resolution guaranteed publicly funded sexual reassignment surgery and complete medical care to all trans Cuban citizens under the national public health system, the first of any Latin country in America to do so. So it says publicly funded sexual reassignment surgery, meaning you got free reassignment surgery if you're trans. Sounds more progressive than the United States to me, doesn't it? Says second, Cuba has a history of anti-gay policies that systematically discriminate against and criminalize sexual diversity, which is true. Why would a country with a proven track record of discrimination become a leader in the Americas for gender and sexual diversity rights? This is because, as we argue here, the Cuban state does not view gender and sexuality as right-based issues. It approaches them as health-based challenges. For what some may see as a small distinction on terminology, Cuba's health-based approach to sexuality and sexual diversity more broadly is in fact noteworthy in terms of both the approach and the outcomes. Cuba's public insurance for sexual reassignment surgery is a result of broader social commitment to health as an intrinsic right and health care as an integral aspect of this right. Such a commitment to a rights-based approach to health is, as we argue, powerful enough to overrule historically entrenched discrimination within society. They started this years ago. And the crazy part is people will talk about Cuba and say, well, Cuba, they're not great for LGBTQ. And that's like, in the past, they've had their transgressions. They have. Hell, even Fidel Castro apologized for that. But that's not who they are anymore. In fact, Cuba is actually more socially progressive than the United States now. And they did it without even having to consult their courts. They did it through just voting. Now, let me share this with you guys as well, because this is also very important. And this was shared by the International. Since this is from the International magazine, it says, Happy Pride Month. Cuba, despite the U.S. hypocritical claims to be a progressive country, the 2022 Cuban Family Code is considered to be very progressive and LGBTQ friendly. It says it was approved by the referendum on September 25th, 2022. The new code greatly strengthens gender equality. It legalizes same-sex marriage. This makes Cuba the 33rd country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage. It says it allows same-sex couples to adopt children. This makes Cuba the 20th country in the world to allow same-sex couples to adopt children. It legalizes altruistic surrogacy. This means that women can volunteer to be surrogate mothers for other couples without being compensated for their services. So you don't have to have a whole bunch of money in order to have a surrogate. It can be a class issue too. It strengthens gender equality. This new code explicitly prohibits discrimination based on gender, and it guarantees equal rights for men and women in all areas of life, including marriage, divorce, child custody, and property ownership. So, and by the way, this referendum, over 75% of Cubans voted for this, and it won with over 65% support. Or wait, was it 90%? I know it was a huge amount of Cubans voted, and then an overwhelming majority voted for it. So it was actually voted. Here in the United States, for us to have equality, we actually have to go through the courts, and those can be overturned. Hello, Roe v. Wade. So we can lose our rights like that. But this was actually voted on by the people in Cuba. That's how strong this really is. We're on the subject of Cuba. And yes, Cuba does have a not so great history. That's putting it lightly. This is from Socialist Action. It says Mariela Castro in Cuba's LGBT revolution. Just released film follows Mariela Castro and Cuban LGBT activists as they travel through rural towns to engage with Cubans about the upcoming International Day Against Homophobia on May 17, 1990. They travel to the region of Matanzas, the small town of San Pablo de Yeo, and Ciego de Avila, and a farm in Sierra Maestra Mountains. And there are more recent interviews with lesbian, gay men, and transgender Cubans and their families throughout the island. The film begins and ends with the 2013 Day Against Homophobia marches, which illustrates how far the movement has become. In the beginning, the film explains that Mariela Castro is the daughter of Raul Castro and the niece of Fidel Castro, but it fails to mention more important fact that she is very much the daughter of Vilma Espin, who was a Cuban revolutionary feminist and president of the Federation of Cuban Women from 1960 until her death in 2007. Mariela likes to say that she is a Castro by accident of birth. When she is asked about the marriage equality for Cuba, she says that when her father tells her she is going too fast, she reminds him that her mother supported gay marriage in the 1980s. And so this is a good article. It's kind of a short article, but it also talks about Mariela Castro fighting for LGBTQ rights in Cuba. So that's also a really good article.